Hello,
This
hello.
meeting is being recorded.
Hello. Today is October 10th, 2023. It's a SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have a few agenda items today. First agenda item is coming from Adrian. Adrian, up.
Hey, hi. I unfortunately I forgot that the deadline for the CAP was last Friday. So I still updated the CAP about forensic container checkpointing to move it from alpha to beta for 130 basically. And the rules or the steps to graduate from alpha to beta was that one container engine has to implement it, and no major bugs should have been reported, and tests are there. I think from my point of view, those steps, those points are done. Cryo enables it. There are tests when tests can handle a container engine if it's enabled or not enabled a feature. And I just wanted to bring it here for early feedback. So it might hopefully could be ready for 130.
Yeah, my biggest worry is that Containerd still haven't implemented it, and it may indicate a lack of interest in the feature. So we don't have major bugs reported, but it's not clear whether it's from lack of usage or from like everything is working fine.
Yeah, so from what I hear, when I talk about it on conferences, I get always asked about Containerd, and I tell the people asking for it, there's a pull request open, but a Containerd community does not review it. So I don't know. So yeah, maybe there's no interest there, but or no interest from the community, but there are a couple of people interested definitely in it. Yeah, it's hard to tell how much people are interested in it. Anyway, yeah, you're right. It's not available in Containerd yet.
Do you have a good feedback on usage, like maybe some external blog post talking about usability of a feature, or something like something that will prove that it's actually being used or tested somehow?
No, it's the only feedback so far is people open bug reports, trying to use it, or just questions around it. But I'm not sure if there's anything. Blog posts. Most blog posts have been written by myself, so they don't count, I guess.
Okay. I think that will be the question for graduation in a CAP, but if we can gather some feedback on usability, it will be very useful. And Mike,
Okay.
made yourself like you turn on the video, like you want to say something?
Yeah, I think one of my questions, Adrian, I'm sure you remember this, right? Originally, the CAP was, passed through for the purpose of forensics, and I understand most of the uses haven't been for forensics, but, more for, I want to make copies of, these images so I can restore them. But we haven't gone back to the CAP to describe those use cases and how we're going to manage those images. And you had a recent pull request that was to modify, or at least provide some management similar to the way we manage logs, where we would delete or only keep the last 10 images for a particular container. I'm just trying to understand the use cases, I think, and that not having those use cases and not having any security discussions around, where they get these images get stored, how they get managed. That made me a little concerned. I'm not blocking it on Containerd, but I'm concerned. I don't know. I don't understand the use cases very well.
Yeah. Okay.
And I get you. I mean, you've got some really good patterns of use with third-party tooling that may provide those use cases. and provide the management. But again, I wasn't sure if that's what Kubelet wanted, and I don't know why the decision was made to go forensics only in the first cap.
Yeah, I think the reason for forensics was because it's the most simple use case, and because you can remove the restore part from it. So it's only about, you can only talk about the checkpointing. Restoring works now independent of the cap or of Kubernetes. It's handled in the container engine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have to. I don't know.
I mean, that's the only thing that was keeping me from, raising the flag and carrying it for you to merge it on Containerd. I didn't understand what the scenario was and what the design was going to be for management and securing these images.
Yeah, securing was we talked about encryption at different levels. So either at the OCI level or at the lowest level, CREO. And the problem is with the OCI level is there was a short discussion about having an image standard, but it also died down because there was not so much interest. So it's
right.
It's stuck. It's stuck. It's getting stuck at different places at this point. So yeah.
Right. Thus, okay. Do we need a work group? Do we need some way to get that resolved so that I don't feel concerned that we're going to open up an HTTP port for a web service to enable copying a container to a destination of our without the administrators of that cloud knowing it's happening.
Yeah, right.
I know beta. I mean, beta it depends on whether we consider this an API, whether beta would be enabled by default. Is that right, Sergey?
Yeah, but one thing is enabled on Kubernetes side, but another thing is enabled on CRI level, right? So containers may decide something different. I think it's, on a high level, it's all protected with like socket is protected, so nobody with low permission can call it. So I don't know how much Containerd want to control like where these files are going. Like it's just like customers requested a snapshot, right?
Yeah, the interesting situation about
right now in the cap, it's requested a snapshot for a forensic purpose, for checkpoint, only for saving, so that you could debug something. I would expect we'd come back and talk about the other scenarios.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Containerd is that Containerd has checkpointing enabled anyway. So if you have access to the Containerd socket, you can create a checkpoint right now without Kubernetes help. So Containerd is then again more open than CREO in the case, because CREO does not enable it as default. It has you have to request it when starting the daemon. So
right.
It's just
not coming through the CRI API.
Yeah, right, yeah. But yeah, then you need root to do it via CRI, and you need root to access the Containerd socket to send the commands, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, by that matter, you could do checkpoints with run C if that's your runtime engine as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I understand. Yeah, wasn't my decision to say forensics only, so I was like, I'm just okay.
Yeah, and in the end, for me, it's totally okay to open it up to other use cases.
Yeah. And then I would understand how we're going to manage them, and then I'll raise the flag and merge it into Containerd.
Okay,
thanks.
Okay, thank you. If there is no more comment on that, let's go to the next item. Matteo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. You surely have seen the discussion on Slack. So my idea today was to kind of gather some more feedback. So for those who didn't read, essentially my issue is that to the state of at this moment, when you try to get blob sizes using CRI-CTL, you get a size which is essentially the blob, the uncompressed. And this is somewhat inconsistent with other runtimes and with Docker. So if you install like a classic kubeadmin cluster with containerd, and then try to get CRI-CTL images, you will get an ID and a size, which will be different like if you do Docker images and try to pull that. So after some feedback and the discussion, we kind of settled to try to make a PR and try to, let's say, document the current behavior, which should be a sort of low effort PR, and try to building up a cap. So since this will be my first attempt of trying to do a cap, does anyone have like a sort of feedback on how to properly handle it? Like if there is something that we should or should not address, because at the current state of the art, it's more like enhancing the API in order to make it aware if a certain of the type of a certain site, and possibly allow users to choose which sites to show. I know there are some, as Mike raised, there are some issues with that, but I think it's feasible. What do you think?
Do you have any problem description beyond incompatibility with Docker? Like what are you trying to use these numbers for, and why do you need different numbers? Because right now, Kevin, you're running another cap about image file system split. So maybe you can comment on what we use in that PR to calculate image sizes and such. So whether we need this API.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to look into the compression size. Currently, I use, at least in Cryo, I am computing it and probably assuming it's uncompressed. So I don't really know if they're related, but they are. This would be, I guess, slightly different.
My main concern was mainly with observability, because if you get, I mean, if someone doesn't have, let's say, software or something for monitoring, and would rather dig into the node in order to see what's happening, let's say maybe there is a node pressure which is constantly being triggered, and the first thing you do is see which images are being deployed. But the problem is, if you do Docker images, you already know that some images are going to share some layers. So maybe you see 4 tags. Each tag is 10 gigs in size, but in reality, those are not 10 gigs. But at least you have a sort of a rough idea that at least 10 gigs will be occupied, plus maybe a little more depending on which tags. But either way, that figure alone is more representative, I would say, than just having the compressed size. Because if you try to inspect an image and see that it's occupying 5 gigs, but those are not 5 gigs, maybe those are 9, those are 10, depending on how it's compressed, then I mean, calculations really don't add up, even if you try wiping all the images from the node and trying to have only one. So you want maybe to better assess how your storage is being used. I mean, it's more of transparency for what I think.
So you want true numbers of disk usage?
I mean, we talked about it, and either we choose to completely migrate the API to just use uncompressed ones, or we give the options. But I really don't know which will be the best approach in this moment.
Because default behavior for containerd is to keep uncompressed, like uncompress everything, but also keep the tar file around. So you need to actually change the default so containerd will remove the tar files. So if you want real disk usage, like, so the question is like, do you want all the space that image takes out of like disk, or you want just uncompressed size which cannot be deleted because I don't know, because of reasons.
I would say uncompressed sites, because all the images is kind of impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but with nodes with a lot of images, I would see that maybe it will cause some overhead, but mainly due to shared layers or possible snapshots and so on. But uncompressed sites is essentially, again, the same as Docker, which I know, I mean, we don't have to be the same as them, but for someone even migrating from one to the other, it's a little more immediate. It's just an idea of, if it were just that image on the node, it would use that amount of sites. That's how I see it, at least.
Okay. Kevin, do you have any more comments on that?
No, I think that's one thing. With my cap, it was really, I think the second part will be when the container runtime will be looking more into getting more clarity on reporting the image sizes. And there are some other pieces I need to work out, because if I'm separating the writable and the read-only layers, I need to make sure I know all the stuff to report for each of those layers. So I haven't, that's going to be something I'll probably tackle next release. Once the cryo changes are in place. But right now I'm just trying to open a PR or open a CRI API to report the container file system separately from the image file system. So, but yeah, I guess my one thing I know, this is for cryo, we report the size on disk. And I guess I think that might mean compressed. It looks like for container RD, it's a little different. I don't know. There's a lot of people. Yeah.
Would you mind, Kevin? Would you mind sharing this step? Because I mean, I don't exactly recall which one is it, but it would be great so that I can have a look, just for curiosity.
Yeah, I'll let me get it real quick.
I posted an agenda document, so you can read it up, and maybe you can even try to combine those two together. Initial question, Matteo, was how to position the cap, and like the biggest question of a cap, why we even bother, like why we even doing any work, especially if it changes some API semantics, and it may be like people will need to migrate from one container version to another container version. So motivation part is very important for cap. So maybe you can tie it together with Kevin's cap, and it may help. Mike, you also want to say something?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, we can, you've seen NerdCTL can report this information. We can report the same information. We also have Derek's code for usage calculation, which we think is more accurate. It might have been what people really want to see, which is how much are we really using on disk, as opposed to the size of the unpacked image. You might want more, but you might get confused again because you're getting a different result between when you run it for Docker using a graph driver, or when you're running containerd with our current semantics for unpack, decrypt, right? And use snapshots, that sort of thing. And shared layers, how do you handle those kinds of things? This can be a difficult, size of things is not always as easy as one might hope. But I can understand why you would want to, see the value that Docker is currently providing, and cryo. We could certainly do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know any historical reasons for that, but I knew about this behavior for a long time. I just didn't know what the origin of it. So my
if
assumption,
you go find Lantau, he can probably.
Yeah, my assumption always was that people want to remove the unpacked image and keep the packed image if you don't use it. But then, like, we
The
didn't
performance
implement it, and like
was.
nobody even discussing
Yeah.
that. So I think maybe it's not the reason. Yeah. Yeah, motivational part, and if you can tie it to some other cap, it will be great. What I can also tell is whatever behavior we currently have, if you will send PR clarifying it for customers, like clarifying that that's exactly this API returns today, and you can like use some language saying like different runtimes use different implementations, it will definitely help. Like definitely help to avoid confusions like that. So I think this
Perfect.
PR will be very valuable.
Yeah, I've got a
Perfect.
vague memory that we decided to do the unpack on every image pull because the expectation was from Kubernetes, the kubelet wanted to run the pod now in all the containers now when there was a pull request, right? So they didn't want to save storage, they wanted to save CPU performance. And we can garbage collect
Yeah.
the images. So anyways.
Okay. Thank you for the valuable feedback. Then I will try to set it up. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, you up for the session?
Yeah, so I just have a short item. Can I go ahead and share? It might be just easier.
Yeah, I made you co-host at the very beginning. Oh no, you're not co-host. Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
What I did. Okay, you're co-host now.
All right. So this is just a long like there was an issue maybe about a month ago or maybe 2 months ago around these OOM killer tests or flaking. It's actually happening in a lot of different jobs than just this one. And I was hoping to come to a consensus on a fix. I guess Todd Neal has a fix proposed here, and I think there was some discussion of whether or not. So the issue I think is detection of OOM for both cryo and container RD, like in the runtimes, can be misleading or not really not working that well. So I think the suggestion was either to skip the test, or as what Todd has here in this PR is to just skip the reason to keep the test. I'd hope to get some consensus on where we want to go forward because these tests keep flaking, and I opened up a PR a couple days ago just to skip this test outright. It'd be nice to get some, if we can decide which way we want to go forward and try to get these tests not flaking as much. I think there are cases in other PRs. I think one of the required pre-submits on PRs is exposing this fix, so I'd like to hopefully get it resolved sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's it for me.
Is there any option to fix the behavior on runtime? I know it's a race that hard to catch, but I'm not sure if there is any way we can fix this behavior so customers will have consistent behavior on OOM.
I don't know. I mean, I know that each place, or sorry, in this issue, I think they pointed out there are a couple issues in container RD with fixing this, and also in cryo and run C. So I don't know like what I think it would have to be both runtimes to fix it eventually. I don't know if it's going to be quick.
Yeah, that was my understanding. Like the intent is to fix it in the runtimes at some point, but it's not fixed yet. Since it's part of a required pre-submit, it's causing a lot of failures and a lot of pre-tests, basically.
And just a question I had, is there a issue open on the runtime side?
Yeah, there are a few actually. Sorry, am I still sharing? Yeah. So at least in this, they're kind of spread all over, but I remember seeing, yeah, it looks like there's 2 issues in container RD related to this from a mix of time, and then also in cryo we have I think 1 related to run C, which I guess this one was merged, and then a separate one in cryo. So I think both the container runtimes are aware of this.
Gotcha. Yeah. Makes sense. I think that makes sense to not skip the reason check or whatever until we have the runtime fix in and then go back in and add it back, right? Something like that.
Yeah, sorry, are you saying to skip the test entirely or just skip the check?
I mean, is there still value in having the test with without the check?
I think I think having tests is always valuable. I don't know. I don't have full awareness of how much this test is.
So running, yeah, you still get the OOM kill. It's just the reason that fails. So you still do verify that the containers get killed. So that was why I sort of implemented it in my PR. It's just skipping the reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep the reason. Kevin, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll close mine and then we can get Todd's merged.
Great. Mike, do you have any idea about this bug?
Well, I mean, I looked at the log, and it seemed like it was related somehow to the events of plague. Yeah, our buffer got full. We were tossing out the events, and it seemed like that was an issue with regard to how the test
No,
was run.
plague events are different. Plague events, like this test didn't enable plague, I think, and we didn't pay attention to that. So I think it's different race condition. Todd, can you explain? I only vaguely remember.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are some logs about things getting tossed out of the evented plague, but like, yeah, I think it was like a red herring and unrelated. This one seemed to be related to when you have an OM kill. There's a file in this group written basically that you read that reason from, and it gets removed before the container runs out and has a chance to read it, and so basically it just loses the entire reason that the container was killed.
Maybe you could reply to my comment on that. I mean, it's possible that that's happening because we're doing evented plagues, and having to do, because the evented plague forced us to do a serialization and get status for the entire pod. I think that might have changed the timing on how we handle we might not get to the file you're talking about to get the status. Anyways.
Yeah, that was I did a little bit of debugging in Containerd, and it was trying to read the file and it was already gone.
Okay, so yeah, look at my comment that there might be some timing related stuff then. Maybe we could disable it and see if that problem goes away. It could be just that simple. At some point, Sergi, we've got to redo how the amount of status we're reporting on these events. It's a little expensive for us.
Yeah, good feedback.
We put a to-do in there on that to handle it in Kubelet, and never got to that to-do about like 8 months ago.
Okay, so maybe we need to block.
Maybe we get a little call going and talk about it.
Yeah, I think we promoted evented plague to beta, but we put a criteria to have a performance tested really deeply before we go forward. So I think it's a good point to look at performance on the runtime as well.
Yeah, if you're doing a lot of exits, having to do a full pod status on it, which gets the status of all containers and serializes it against the store, that's going to slow down our ability to get the information that we need to do when we're processing the OOM.
Makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so we decided to skip a check in a test. We will follow up on container runtime. And Mike, what bothers me is that it's like both cryo and containerd, meaning that it may not be plague related. I would be surprised if plague affecting similarly cryo and containerd. I think it's something to do with C groups being gone by the time we want to get a reason.
Could be a combination of issues.
Yeah,
Okay.
we hit this in the cryo CI basically because system D, like we called reset or fail. We inactive or failed, put the inactive or failed property on the systemd C group. And when the C group is boom killed, it's put into failed state. So then the systemd collects it and removes it before our monitor common can read the state of it. So we basically just like race against systemd's like ability to clean it up too fast.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks.
It sounds more realistic and more probably like of a reason than Plague. I don't think Plague is without an error, but the fact that it's failing on both kind of make me question.
Well, they're both race conditions.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's. Last item I wanted to just ask people who. Oh, somebody else said that the MPT test as well. Mohammed.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I stuck that in a bit late. So yeah, can you open that PR on the screen real quick?
It's not me who is sharing, but I can start sharing.
All right, so I'm kind of stuck on something in that PR. So for those of you not aware, I am working on this initiative where we're trying to replace Keybop with something else, right? And our tests make too many assumptions about the way the cluster has been deployed. So what this change does is it migrates from using like SH to like host local exec thing. Now our standard E2E test passes because it's a master with 4 nodes, but the scale test is failing, and the failure on the scale test definitely doesn't make sense because the pod ran there. It even wrote the log file is there. You can see that pod ran immediate events, wrote logs. So what's this thing doing that gets to pod summary? The only thing different is that the pod names are longer than it was before.
Do you know if it was running as a pod or as a systemd daemon?
It's running as a pod. So it gets deployed as a daemon set.
Then it's as big of a mystery for me. So you're saying that I remember test that tries to SSH and read some journal D, right? And it fails to get information there. Or I'm mixing up in my head something.
If you open the diff for a second, if you go right down to the bottom, all the way down to the bottom, yeah, it's that thing there, right? So the test was structured in a way where right at the end it was gonna go and grab all the pods, look for all the node problem detector pods and get its CPU usage and a few of the metrics and stick it as an output. Do we still need to do that? Because if I can get rid of the last segment there, the failures disappear.
I think the idea is good, right? So
the get MPD pod start function, I don't think it needs to run, but it does run. But there is something wrong with that get stats summary because it's not listing a pod, but we know 100% that pod ran. Because if you look at the logs for that node, you can find the node problem detector log file.
And before you changed, did it work?
Yeah, it was working before.
So the change you made by using node name instead of IP address broke the stats.
Did it? Oh, so the MPD pod start shouldn't have affected the overall change though, because it's an operation that you're doing with the Kubernetes APIs. It's not something you have to SSH onto the server to do.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow here. So you're saying before this PR test passed, and with this PR,
That's what's passing. And even now in this change, it still passes if you are not running too many nodes. So the standard 4-node test passes, but it's failing on the scalability tests. And I
What's
can
failing
see
before
that
scalability?
they actually wrote some extra code in here. I think Washtag and a bunch of other people made changes to this test to accommodate some scalability stuff. But we don't know what that is, right?
So did your PR broke scalability test or it was broken already? This is what I
The,
don't know.
the scalability test was passing before.
Okay, so
At least
this
I think it was
now
passing.
breaks scalability.
I need to double check that. But do we run the 100-node test periodically every day?
Yeah, we need to consult with SIG scalability and
Okay.
open we run it.
I'll probably join their meeting and ask about it. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Mostly scalability, SIG scalability is worried about API stuff. So like how many events we report and how many pods being scheduled and how fast. They care less about stats from individual pods, but I think they want to get into that. They just don't have any resources to start looking more into usage of Node rather than just API scalability. Okay, so yeah, if you can join SIG scalability meeting, maybe you can ask them. But if your PR breaking them, then
I have to fix it. I know. I can't merge that, so I need to work out what's going on.
okay, thank you. Okay, and the last order of business, I wanted to bring up this document I started. If you go into KubeCon or just look at schedule of KubeCon, please add anything SIG Node related, so we can all have like schedule focused on SIG Node and what may be of interest for everybody. So if you want to contribute, please do. Okay, thank you. I think we reached the end of agenda. If nothing else, we can conclude the meeting. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.